Okay, so welcome to another segment of my mathematics video. So this is my part 2 as I look at some sample questions, under vectors paper 2. So we are focusing on your mathematics paper 2 and not your paper 1. So it says this is coming from the 2024 paper 2 question number 3 in Teno. It says in the diagram, EFG is a triangle in which EF is simply represented by, H is represented by 4 vector A, then EF is represented by 4 vector B, and the ratio FJ to JG is 1 to 3. So FJ to JG is 1 to 3. So meaning, if you still remember our ratios, FJ is representing 1, then J to G is a 3 there. So that's what they mean. So that's the ratio. And H is the midpoint. Well, if I tell you to say that H is the midpoint, it simply means that if it's the midpoint of EG, it simply means from E to H, it's the same from H to G there. So they told you that EH is 4 vector A, then it simply means that H to G should also be represented by 4 vector A, meaning the total length from here to there, you add this plus that. So the total length will simply of E to G will simply give you 8 vector A there. That's what they mean. All right. And F, H, and EJ, they meet at point P. That's what they're telling you. So let's look at the solution, to these questions. So Roman 1, A there says express in terms of vector A and of vector B the vector FH. So they want us to express the vector, F to H. So how do I move from F to H? It is simply FE combined with EF. But remember, when you move FE, you're moving in the opposite direction. So you start with this one, which is positive. So your H is positive. So this one is positive. So because it's not starting from the origin, so you start from E. So it will be EH, because that EH is positive, minus, EF. So that's what you're going to do there. So it's EH minus EF, because you need to move FE combined with EF. That's what we mean there. So that is going to be, what is your EF? Your EF is simply 4 vector A minus your EH is 4 vector A, then your EF is 4 vector B. So that's what I wanted you to do there. Of course, someone might have said, no, maybe me, I'm conversant with that. We did say it is FE, combined with EF. That's the way you're going to move. But remember, FE, you're moving in the opposite direction. So therefore, you put up a negative and you maintain the actual direction, which is EF plus EH. That's what we told you. So EF is simply 4 vector B combined with EH is simply 4 vector A. Remember, if you have a positive and negative, bring the positive, in front. So it is 4 vector A minus 4 vector B if you're comfortable. But like I told you, the simplest is start with this one. So it's like E is the origin. So it's EH minus EF. And that's what you're having there. So it's as simple as that. What about if we want to find B says FG from F to G? Remember, from F to G, for me to move from F to G, again, it's like consider E as if it's the origin. So it is going to be E. Of course, FG is FE combined with EG, but EG is positive. So I'll start with this one. It's positive from E. So it's EG minus, EF. That's what we mean there. So what is EG? Remember, EG, I told you, since they told you H is the midpoint, if this is 4 vector A, from H to G, it's 4 vector B. So you add this plus that, that gives you 8 vector A minus EF, E to F, that is 4 vector B. So that is what we mean there. So remember, in simple terms, if you are getting confused, let me also put it up for you there. If you want FG, the movement is FE plus EG. But remember, when you move from F to E, you are moving in the opposite. The vector says you need to move from E to F. So a negative and maintain the direction of the vector, which is EF plus EG. That's what we mean there. So remember that negative means you are moving in the opposite to EF. What's the opposite to EF? It's FE. So it will be negative EF is 4 vector A, vector B plus EG, it is 8 vector A. So start with a positive unless both of them are the negative. So it's 8 vector A minus 4 vector B, and this is what we got there. So it's the same thing. You can see this method is very simple and direct. All right. Let's move on. So let me just try to be putting up what I'm getting there. So the first one, we simply got 4 vector A minus 4 vector B. B, we have gotten 8 vector A minus 4 vector B, because we need this as we move on. So that's why I'm writing them there. Right, so we can move on to our C part, Roman 1C. It says EJ. So we want to find what is E to J. So when I want to move from E to J, well, for me to move from E to J, it will be EF combined with FJ. So it is going to be EF combined with FJ. But EF plus, if you notice, FJ, it's a ratio. It was in the ratio. What's the ratio of FJ? It is the ratio of FJ is simply 1 over the total ratio of this line FG, 1 plus 3, which will give you a 4. Then you multiply by the whole entire vector, which is FG. That's what we do. And we have found what our FG is. Remember, B was FG. It is that one that we have. So it is going to be EF is 4 vector B plus 1 over 4 multiply FG. We found that one 8 vector A minus 4 vector B. So it will be 4 vector B, 1 over 4 times 8 vector A, 4 there, 1, 4 there, to give us 2 vector A. 1 over 4 times that, 4 and 4 will cancel, so it will give you just vector B. Then you can add the like terms. So EJ therefore B, I can start with that 2 vector A. 4B minus B will give me minus 3 vector B. So that's the answer to EJ. So it's 2 vector A minus 3 vector B. So our C part there, it is 2 vector A minus 3 vector B. Take note of that. That's EJ that we have calculated there. Let's move on to the Roman 2 there that they have actually given us. How do you get your Roman 2 there? How do I get my Roman 2? It says, given that, F to P, if you want to move from F to P, you can say K, which is a constant, multiplied by the vector FH. That's what they tell you. So the first of all, find this one. Then you can show that EP is equal to that. Meaning, why they have given you this one? Because this, in order for you to move from E to P, you need to involve FP. So that's why you need, first of all, to find this one. Sometimes they use the word hence, meaning use your previous, option that you had. Or otherwise, you can use an alternative method. So FP will be equal to, it will be K. What is FH? Remember, FH is the first one that we found there. So that is 4 vector A minus 4 vector B. So you can K times that to give you 4K vector A. Remember, the vector should always be at the end. K times that, the number starts, the constant, then the vector at the end. So that is FP that we have found. Now, in order for us to show EP, what we want to find, we want to show that EP is equal to that. So what we are going to do is that for EP, in order for me to move from E to P, I need to involve FP, which I've actually found. So remember, our FP here is equal to that. So FP, I found that. So how do I move from E to P? It is EF combined with FP. That's the simplest. So it's EF, the vector EF plus the vector FP. That's what we need to do. So what is the vector EF? it is simply 4 vector b plus what is fb, this one here, it is 4k vector a minus 4k vector b. Now we just need to collect the like terms on one particular side. So remember, they are starting with A and they are ending with B. So we also do the same. So this A will be in front. I'll put it in front. So it will be 4k vector A. Then if I notice there, I'll have this one here just to arrange in that sequence plus 4 vector B minus, I'll get this one there, 4k vector B there. So now EP will be equal to 4k vector A. You can factorize. What is common there? If you notice, 4 is common, but also B. So the number to your left, the vector to your right. So when I factorize 4 and B, I'll remain with 4 out. Here when I factorize 4b, I'll remain with 1. There when I move out 4b, I'll remain with k and the vector outside there. So you can see that we can say hence shown. So this is what they wanted. They wanted you to show that EP reduces to that. So that's the idea that we're having there. Right, let me just try to look at another question. Let me just try to look at another question that you can look at. And also this question came in another exam, but let me try to show you how you can go about that. So question number 2 says in the diagram below, OP from O to P, it is represented by 2 vector P, then O to Q is represented by 4 vector Q, and the ratio PX, so they're talking about the ratio P, this is the point X there, so the ratio PX to XQ is 1 to 2, so PX is representing the ratio 1, and X to Q is simply 2. So please pay attention when it comes to the ratios. Then it says, express in terms of vector P and or vector Q, A, so Roman 1, so we look at the solution to this one. Roman 1 there, A says PQ. So how do you find your PQ? How do you move from P to Q? Remember, PQ is PO combined with OQ. But if you move PO, you're moving in the opposite direction. This is a position vector. So what you can do, start with this one. It's positive like I told you. So it's OQ. Then you say minus the last one, which is OP, because you're moving in the opposite direction to the actual vector. So what is OQ? It is 4 vector Q minus what is OP? It is simply 2 vector P. That is what we mean. So that is your PQ there. So it's very simple if you got the concept in the first video that I made for you. B, it says PX. So how do you get your P to X? How do I get my P to X? Remember, P to X involves a ratio. So how you can get PX, you use the ratios. So what's the ratio of P to X? It's simply 1 over, you add the ratio 1 plus 2. So it is 3. Then you multiply by the vector PQ. That's why you have already found PQ, meaning you have created this road. So what is the vector PQ? So multiply by the vector PQ. That's what you do. So it's 1 over 3 multiplied by the vector P to Q, which we found there, which is 4 vector Q minus 2 vector P. That's what we mean. So what do you need to do? You can simply just expand that one. So PX will be equal to 1 over 3 times that will give you 4 over 3 vector Q. 1 over 3 times that will give you 2 over 3 vector P. So that is where you can end that. So that is your PX. This is your PX they wanted you to get there. All right, so let me just be putting up there my PQ. We got 4 vector Q minus 2 vector P. My PX there, I've actually gotten as 4 over 3 vector Q minus 2 over 3 vector P. That's what I've actually, gotten there. I'll use this. That's why I'm writing them aside. Okay, so let's continue and look at the C part now. The C part there says we find OX. We now find O to X. We now move from O to X. So how do I move from O to X? Remember, I just found PX there. So for me to move from O to X, I can say OP combined with PX. So it is simply going to be OP combined with PX. And you just found your PX. What is OP? It is 2 vector P plus. What is my PX? It's that one. So it's 4 over 3 vector Q minus 2 over 3 vector P. So what do? Well, you find the common denominator. You just work out your algebra. This 2P can be written over 1. So what's the common denominator there? It's a 3. 1 into 3 is a 3. 3 times 2 vector P will give me 6 vector P plus 3 into 3, it's 1 times 4. That will give me 4 vector Q. 3 into 3 is 1 times 2. That will give me 2 vector P. Then like terms on top, remember 6P and minus 2P, that will give me 4 vector P. Then plus 4Q over 3. So that's the idea that you're having there. So this, if you want, this is OX. Your OX can also be written, you can separate them and say 4 over 3 vector P plus 4 over 3 vector Q. So this is okay. You can also express it in this way. Actually, I love it expressing in this way because later on when you use it to show, it will be much easier. So I'll write my OX there as a 4 over 3 vector P plus 4 over 3 vector Q. So that's what I'll write as my OX there. So this is the way you needed to have gone about it. Well, let's move on to the last one. Remember, vectors is compulsory when it comes in your section A paper 2 ECZ exam. So make sure that you know what you're doing by going through this concept. Number 2, it says that given that OC is H multiplied by the vector OX, show that CQ is equal to that. Remember what I've told you? Start by finding OC because they are telling you when you find OC, for you to move from C to Q, you need to involve OC. Move also involving OC. So how do I get OC? It is simply H, which could be any constant multiplied by the vector OX. So it is H. What is OX? Remember, OX is what we got there. So it is 4 over 3 vector P plus 4 over 3 vector Q. That's what we made. So expand that one. So it will be H times that. It will be 4 over 3 or 4H over 3 vector P plus this times that will give you 4H over 3 vector Q. So that is OC. Now, you are going to use this one to show that CQ is equal to that. So now, how do I get CQ? So for me to move from C to Q, I need to move also involving OC. So OC is here. So from C to Q, it will be CO combined with OQ. That's what we mean. But remember, CO is in the opposite. So what are you going to do? So you are going to do this. So you are going to start with a positive, which is Q is positive, so it will be OQ minus OC. So what is OQ? OQ is 4 vector Q minus OC. OC is this guy here, so 4H over 3 vector P combined with 4H over 3 vector Q. Now, what are you going to do there? Remember, don't forget this negative is like there's a 1 should multiply by this bracket there because I was just replacing OC there. So therefore it will be CQ is equal to 4 vector Q minus 4H over 3 vector P. Negative and positive is a negative, so it will be 4H over 3 vector Q. Now remember they have started with a Q and ended with a P, so I'll start with a Q. You just rearrange them properly according to what you are seeing there. So I'll start with a Q, so it will be Q, so it will be 4Q, and I'll bring that one minus 4H over 3 vector Q minus 4H over 3 vector P. So here, if you notice the Q's, you can see what is common. So you are dealing with these. What is common? There's 4 and the Q. Remember the number to your left, so I'll remove the 4. When I remove 4Q, I'll remain with 1 there. When I remove 4, and Q, I'll remain with the 1h over 3, then the Q is outside. Since we removed 4 and Q, minus 4h over 3 vector P. You can see there that that's your CQ, hence shown. So we have actually shown that. So basically, that is how you can go about vectors. Please do more practice questions, and if you need any help, you can actually let me know by writing a message, then I can be able to respond. Please, you can also subscribe, to my group so that I can continue to make more of these videos. Thank you so much.